Please, I am begging you, I would love to see your take on a full power version of a Teval Arbiter of Virtue deck. Well, I don't want to build a full power version of that. I do want to build a $15 version of that, though. This is a deck that I have struggled with. I wanted to build this months ago, and between a combination of being busy, traveling, the Final Fantasy release, and just not understanding what this particular commander wanted, I've not been able to actually put anything together, but I think I finally figured out what I'm going to do to make Teval Arbiter of Virtue work. And I'm going to warn you, it's kind of nasty, so I hope you're ready for a deck that is just awful, just genuinely quite mean when it gets going. Teval Arbiter of Virtue is a Sultai and 2 Spirit Dragon, flying, lifelink, and the ability to give all your spells delve. There is a trade-off, though. If you have Teval on the board, all of your spells make you lose life equal to their mana value, irrespective of whether or not you used the Delve ability at all. That's more than a little spooky. That feels like a very quick way to just commit suicide. So, let's see what we can do with this. Obviously, this is going to have to be a deck that does not require the commander to be out for the majority of its time in play. The commander should be coming out solely for a wombo combo near the end of the game, and not a moment sooner. So we're going to have a heavy ramp package and a heavy mill and draw package to not only get the cards we need in the graveyard for the commander to work, but to get the cards that are going to make the commander do its job at all. So let's see what we can do. Obviously, step 1 is going to be finding a pretty efficient self-mill package, and I think I've got a pretty decent one here. We've got Greater Moss Dog and Golgari Brown Scale, as well as the Shambling Shell, because all of these are dredge creatures. If we were to draw a card, we can instead mill multiple cards to put these cards in our hand, and then we'll discard them again to repeat the process. This should allow us to get through our deck pretty quickly, but we're going to supplement these with Grizzly Salvage, Town Greeter, Satyr Wayfinder, and Grapple with the Past. All of these mill cards and then add lands or creatures to our hand, making it easier for the deck to get what it needs. We also want some basic mill strategies as well, so a Nyx Weaver, which can mill us every single turn, and a Diviner of Mist, which can mill cards and then also cast spells from our graveyard, is going to be very helpful. The deck has a good few instants and sorceries in the deck that all cost 4 or less, so this should be able to happen just fine. Oh, by the way, because we are kind of a combo deck, Nyx Weaver's secondary ability of being able to go into the graveyard and grab any of our cards and put them back into our hand is going to be incredibly useful, so long as we can have the Nyx Weaver on the board in the first place. And because we are going to be milling so many cards, let's go ahead and find ways that mill can hurt our opponents. Sir Conrad the Grim and Dreadhound will both burn our opponents for a lot of damage the longer we throw cards into the graveyard. And since we're throwing so many cards into the graveyard, let's make sure that we have ways to get those cards back, like Once in Future, Aurorial Procession, and Timeless Witness. And let's go ahead and throw in a little bit of reanimation for good measure, but let's make sure that it's all reanimation that does a lot more than what's printed on the package. Ever After and Victimize and Coiling Rebirth can all reanimate 1 or 2 creatures. In the case of Coiling Rebirth, it reanimates 1 and then creates a token copy of it. We have a lot of creature ETBs that matter, so the Coiling Rebirth should be able to do a lot of work here. And then we have Dread Return, which can reanimate a creature, and then we can sacrifice cards on our board to reanimate another creature. This can be good for setting up combos, and because we have to throw this into the graveyard on accident sometimes, that flashback ability is going to be incredibly useful. And now we need to actually talk about what all of this milling is going to be for. We want Teval to give Delve, which will lower the mana cost of any card in our hand, by 1 for every card we banish from the graveyard. Well, that means X spells are going to work really well for our deck. So we are going to be running 6 X spells. Each of these can either close out the game on its own or do plenty of work as long as we have some setup. So first we have Doomsday Confluence. This card can make each opponent discard a card and each opponent sacrifice a non-artifact creature or make Daleks for us depending on what we pay into it. So let's say we have 20 cards in our grave and we pay 1 black mana and get rid of 20 cards. That X will be 10 because it's a double X, and we can make every opponent sacrifice 5 non-artifact creatures and then make them discard 5 cards each, leaving them with absolutely nothing left. We won't have anything else left either, but we are kind of a graveyard deck, so our cards being in the grave doesn't hurt us as much as it hurts other people. If we make those Daleks, however, then we'll have a board state that we can start hurting people with after we've exhausted everybody of their resources. Let's also put Villainous Wealth in, allowing us to cast just a wide dearth of cards from our opponent's decks. Let's put in Aggressive Biomancy and Doppelgang. These can both clone powerful creatures on our board or any other permanents at all to create game-winning states. With Doppelgang, let's say you have the Sir Conrad out on the board and a couple of other creatures. Use the Doppelgangs to create a bunch of clones of our mill creatures and a bunch of clones of Sir Conrad. The Sir Conrads will all see each other and kill themselves, burning our opponents for a lot of damage all at once, and then the mill creatures will finish off anybody who happens to be a life gain deck when we do so. Let's also put in Gelatinous Genesis to give us a way to win via combat, creating XXX Gelatinous Ooze tokens all at once. Again, if we have that 20 cards in the graveyard, this will make 10 green ooze tokens. 100 damage in a go-wide board state is hard to deal with. And let's also put in 1 Exsanguinate. This makes each opponent lose X life, and then we gain life equal to the life lost this way. This not only can help us bounce back from the life lost from our commander, but this card can just end the game on its own. If we have even a little more life than our opponents, even 1 more life than our opponents, and a big enough graveyard, Exsanguinate should be able to end the game right there. Just be a little careful. We may deal with like a stray lightning bolt or something, and that would cause this to be a giant game draw for everyone. But that does it for the core of the deck. We want to mill cards to fuel Teval, we want to play Teval late into the game, and we want to play a big X spell to hurt our opponents. But we need to be able to draw into those X spells, and while our self-mill can get us kind of there since we have so much reanimation and recursion, let's be a little more consistent and talk about a full-on draw package. Hey, real quick, I just want to ask you to do me a huge favor. Please consider following me over on Blue Sky and other social media linked down below. And if you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing that as well. And if you want to financially support the show, obviously there's Patreon and a fourth wall link down there with a playmat, but you can also click on this mana pool link and pick up any of your singles that you want over there. That link gives me a kickback and helps me out a ton. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll get right back to the video. We're going to be running a 9-card draw package here, and this runs... basically, every card needs to either draw us a card and throw something into the grave, or draw us a card and do something else for us. So, in the draw us a card and do something else for us, we have Eureka Moment, draws 2 cards, and then lets us put a land from our hand onto the battlefield. Forbidden Alchemy lets us look at the top 4 cards of our library, put one into our hand and the others in the graveyard, and it's got flashbacks, so the other thing it's doing for us is being able to be used even if it gets sent into the graveyard. For throwing things into the graveyard, though, we have Memories Returning, Hostile Negotiations, and Factor Fiction. All of these allow us to grab 2 to 3 cards out of a pile and throw the rest into the graveyard after playing a fun game with an opponent. Then we have Thought Courier, Merfolk Looter, Vohar Vidalian Desecrator, and Bonded Fetch. All of these can draw through our deck at a decent click while throwing cards into our graveyard, fueling Teval and our X spells as we go. And because these are repeatable every turn, these should be able to get us through our deck very, very nicely. And throwing a reanimation target into the graveyard is always going to be good in a deck like this. And that should do it for all of our draw package. Combined with our mill package, we've got 18 cards that allow us to select through our deck. But we do need to make sure that our opponents aren't able to win the game on their own, so let's talk about our removal package so that we can slow our opponents down so that we can catch up and win. We are a budget deck after all. For the removal and interaction package, we are going to be running 12 cards plus 2 board wipes, and we're going to start with the counter spells. We are a combo deck, so these are very important. Negate, Sinister Sabotage, and Refute can all counter spells, and Sinister Sabotage and Refute can do this while also throwing things into our graveyard, which our deck wants to do. Then let's get out some Omni removal. Binding the Old Gods can get rid of any non-land permanent while also giving us a land. Alpha Deathclaw can destroy any permanent at all when it touches the board, and Meteor Golem is the little brother of Alpha Deathclaw, which can do the same thing, especially if we are reanimating it. Awaken the Honored Dead can blow up any non-land permanent and allow us to mill 3 cards as well, and it can allow us to get a creature or land from our graveyard to our hand by discarding any card once we have hit that final ability on the card. Then we have some creature removal. Death Sprout blows up a creature and not draws a card, but it gets us a land. Ravenous Chupacabra and Dalek Drone blow up a creature when they touch the board. Putrefy can blow up an artifact or a creature whenever we need, and Fangkeeper's Familiar can counter any spell that is a creature spell, or blow up an enchantment, or Surveil 3 and gain us 3 life when it touches the board. This can also be incredibly powerful if we happen to be cloning this guy with one of our clone cards. And for our board wipes, we are running a Necromantic Selection and a Death Begets Life. They may be very expensive, but the Selection will allow us to keep Teval Arbiter of Virtue on the board if we happen to need that, and the Death Begets Life will allow us to get a fresh hand, which sometimes may be able to just win us the game outright when we cast this card. It depends on the setup. Or you can just do what I do and kill yourself with this card. It's my favorite way to die. And that does it for all the removal in the deck. Now we need to talk about ramp and mana so that we can try to catch up to our opponents speed-wise. And we've got a 12-card ramp package here along with 40 lands, and many of these ramp cards will throw themselves into the grave in one way, shape, or form in order to ramp us. Dawn Treader Elk can throw itself to the grave to get a land from our deck onto the battlefield, basic lands only. Font of Fertility does the same thing, as does Wayfarer's Bauble, as does Sakura Tribe Elder, as does Diligent Farmhand. All of these are variations on the same principle. Thing comes on board, sacrifice Thing somehow, get Thing from deck onto battlefield. Then we have Farhaven Elves, Search for Tomorrow, Rampant Growth, and all of these cards can grab a basic land from our deck and put them onto the battlefield. Clifftop Lookout can grab a land from the top of our deck and throw it on the battlefield no matter what the land is. Milkin can tap to mill a card, which our deck really wants to do, and then get a mana for it because it is the only mana rock we're going to be running. And a Growth Spiral will allow us to draw 1 card and then put any land from our hand onto the battlefield. Finally, we have a Wood Elves, one of the 2 methods of tutoring up any forest from our deck, and the reason why we are going to be running a couple of searchable lands in the deck. And, well, that does it for all of our ramp. Now we just have to get through the lands, the part that nobody really likes, but I seem to really enjoy. 7 forests, 5 swamps, and 4 islands make up our basic land package, with our Dimir lands made up of River of Tears, Tainted Isle, Darkwater Catacombs, Sunken Hollow, and Temple of Deceit. Temple is our only tapped land in this deck in the Dimir colors. Then, for our Golgari colors, Temple of Malady, Tainted Wood, Haunted Mire so we can search it up with Binding the Old Gods or Wood Elves, and Viridescent Bog. And finally, for the Simic ones, we have a few more. 1 tapped land with the Temple of Mystery, and another tapped land in the form of a Tangled Islet. This card can be used with our Binding the Old Gods or our Wood Elves. Finally, for our untapped lands, we have Yavimaya Coast, Overflowing Basin, Vine Glimmer Snarl, Flooded Grove, and Hinterland Harbor. Then for our Omni lands, we have Command Tower, Exotic Orchard, and Opulent Palace. If you do have access to the Triome, it is more powerful in this deck than normal because you can throw it to the grave. Speaking of throwing to the grave, we are going to be running the fetching lands Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse, Myriad Landscape, and Foreboding Landscape. The Myriad Landscape can ramp us, and the Foreboding Landscape can cycle out when we need it to, and it's also just a fetching land in general. And we're going to be running a singular utility land in this deck, and that is the Dakmor Salvage. Though, if you are upgrading the budget for this deck, you certainly can put in more utility lands. There is plenty of room for them. The Dakmor Salvage is here because it is a dredge land that we can use to dig through our deck very well with our deck's looters. And that does it for everything in the deck. Now all that's left to do is to actually talk about how to play the damn thing, because, oh, it's going to be fun to see what kind of big numbers we can come up with in this thing. Looking at this opening hand, we have no combo pieces, no draw, no nothing, but we have a Satyr Wayfinder so we can start filling up the grave, and we have a Dawnshredder Elk so we can start ramping. I'm not confident in this hand, but I'm willing to keep it. Unfortunately, we don't have any black mana, as the Tainted Isle and Tainted Wood require a swamp to work. So our Dawnshredder Elk is probably going to be the first thing we try to work towards to get that swamp to get those cards online. So our turn 1 is going to be playing a forest, passing to our opponents, and then our turn 2 is going to be playing that Tainted Wood, tapping 2, and getting Dawnshredder Elk on the board. Turn 3, we have a Font of Fertility. Let's go ahead and play the Tainted Isle. Let's crack the Dawnshredder Elk in order to go into our library and grab ourselves a swamp. This will turn our other 2 tainted lands online, and then we'll pay 1 in order to, or 2, in order to get the Satyr Wayfinder on the board to mill 1, 2, 3, 4 cards, putting this swamp into our hand, and what do you know, we have one of our dredge creatures already ready to go once we have a draw engine. Then we move on to turn 4, and we have a Forbidden Alchemy. This will let us get some good selection, so let's go ahead and pay 1, 2, 3, and play that card, and let's see what we can get off the top 4 of our deck. A Victimize, a Town Greeter, and a Evolving Wild. I'm going to take the Victimize and throw the others to the grave, and let this be what it is. We still have a little bit of mana available, so let's go ahead and tap it to play the Font of Fertility and play that Exotic Orchard so we have maximum mana options later in the game. Moving on to turn 5, nobody knows we have the Victimize in our hand, and do I want the Sinister Sabotage? You know what? Actually, I don't think I think... Sometimes I wish I could hold a button and hit next turn and not draw a card, because I think I want to dredge. With Victimize in the hand, dredging is actually the better option right now, because we can get a creature into our grave this way. So we mill 1, 2, and we failed to get a creature into the grave, which isn't the greatest, but it's not the worst either. So let's go ahead and try to dig a little more. We're going to use Victimize to sacrifice our Satyr Wayfinder to get Town Greeter and Dreadhound. The Town Greeter is going to mill 4 cards and put a land from among them into our hand. So let's go ahead and mill 1, 2, 3. We got an Alpha Deathclaw gone, putting River of Tears in our hand. Alpha Deathclaw burns everybody for 1 because of the Dreadhound. That Dreadhound also mills us cards. Now, we don't have any other options, so let's go ahead and sacrifice our Font of Fertility in order to go into our library and grab ourselves a land. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We should have 1 more land, so let's go ahead and play that River of Tears so that it is out and ready for use. Now we move on to turn 5. That's actually in our hand is Diviner of Mist. This isn't as good as the Negate would have been, but it's not the end of the world. Let's go ahead and play the Diviner of Mist, and let's go ahead and also play this Forest so we can hold up Putrefy to get rid of an opponent's game-ending move if they decide to do it. Diviner of Mist will be able to mill us cards later in the game, so let's move on to the next turn. We're at turn 7. We have Coiling Rebirth. I would love to cast this now, but I think we need to try to get better cards with the Diviner of Mist. So let's go ahead and swing the Diviner of Mist, milling 1, 2, 3, 4, and it lets us cast one of these cards immediately. I would like to cast Once in Future to put Gelatinous Genesis into our hand. Perfect. Once in Future goes away, and then let's see what we can do with our grave. We want to go ahead and get a card out of here. Man. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That casts the Coiling Rebirth, gifting a card. Let's see what we get. So doing the math on it, I think it's actually going to be better to not do the Coiling Rebirth the way I was thinking. I think it's going to be better to pay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and get Teval out. With Teval out, we get to pay 1, 2 into the Coiling Rebirth, getting rid of 1, 2, 3 cards from the grave, maybe just 2 cards from the grave, in order to cast this Coiling Rebirth. This will allow us to get not 1, but 2 Satyr Wayfinders out, which will mill 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. We have a Dread Return in the grave. That will be excellent to use. And 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to use the first Satyr Wayfinder. It allows us to get a land from among them, so there's no lands in the first set. And the second one sees that there is a Foreboding Landscape, so we can take that and throw the others away. Then we have the Dread Return. We can use that on the follow-up turn in case we find a better combo than what the Gelatinous Genesis will do for us. Either way, I think we passed our opponents, and if they can't beat us here, then we are going to have a gigantic turn. Moving into turn 8, the penultimate turn for most games that I try to build. Let's see here. I want to swing with the Diviner of Mists. I think that's the move, right? We swing with the Diviner of Mists in order to mill 1, 2, 3, 4. And then with these 4 cards, we get to cast an instant or sorcery from our grave. We're going to cast Memories Returning from the grave to reveal the top 5 cards of our deck and fish for a better combo piece. And there it is. We get first pick. We pick Villainous Wealth. They get next pick. They're going to throw a card away, and it's probably going to be the Chupacabra. We get next pick. We're going to grab ourselves the Hinterland Harbor. They're going to throw away our Myriad Landscape. We're going to get our Surge for Tomorrow. Boom. Okay, cool. I thought we were going to be doing something different than this right here, but it turns out, no. We're just going to cast all the spells in an opponent's deck. That's going to be the move. We're going to throw away 1, 2, 3 creatures from our board, and we are going to cast the Dread Return. Casting the Dread Return gets us the Alpha Deathclaw. We are using the Alpha Deathclaw to get rid of, say, a stacks piece that would otherwise prevent us from doing something. We're also just trying to bait out counter spells and other things that we can get rid of. Dread Return is gone. We need to keep track of the fact that we have lost 8 life to our own spells. No, we've lost 13 life to our own spells so far. Now we are going to pay 1, 2, 3, and we are going to throw away a lot of cards from our grave. Like an obnoxious amount of cards from our grave. By getting rid of a ton of cards in our grave, we are going to cast Villainous Wealth for... How much life do we have left? If we've lost 13 life, and we had the opportunity to swing with Teval, we've gained 6. People have probably hit us a little bit. Let's say we have 20 life. Then let's put it on our opponents to deal with our 1 remaining life. Let's cast Villainous Wealth where 19 is the X. Let's take the top 19 cards of any of our opponents' decks, and let's just cast all of them. If we find a win con in there, excellent. If we don't find a win con in there, then we didn't. But we've burned our opponents for about 6 or 7 damage each with Dreadhound, and the Villainous Wealth should get us most of the way there to get pretty much anything that we want out of their decks. Oh, and if we need to, we can also play the island and tap 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nah, we don't have the mana for it. I was hoping we could also Monstrous the Alpha Deathclaw, but we don't actually have the mana to Monstrous the Alpha Deathclaw. So, we're Villainous Wealthing for a lot of stuff. In a different world where we weren't setting up for a Villainous Wealth, we could have Gelatinous Genesis for 20, and that would have given us 100 damage in green oozes. It just depends on which angle you wanted to go. So now, with all that said, how would we actually upgrade a deck like this? Because turn 8 being able to just cast an Oops, I Win spell is pretty damn good for Bracket 3 casual, but let's see what we can do. If you're upgrading the deck, the Teval Precon actually had a lot of cards that are neat. Welcome the Dead can let you get a big board state just by milling, which the deck is already doing. Colossal Grave Reaver can turn all your mills into sweet, sweet reanimation. Teval Balance Scale can help you ramp through your deck and also just be a good lightning rod. People really like to kill this card. They don't like Teval because Teval gets so much mana it replaces itself very, very quickly. You can also put in another Lieutenant in Sidisi Brood Tyrant. This can allow you to get tons of 2/2 black zombies and also just mill guards on its own, which the deck wants to be doing anyway. Instead of trying to get life back to make up for what Teval does to you, maybe you could put in a Profane Transfusion to swap the life total of yourself with an opponent. This will allow you to take the 1 life I left us with and turn it into a, no, actually, you have 1 life. Suck it, nerd. Then we can turn our ramp up even higher with a Head Shredder. All of the land milling we are throwing away, we can just use the Head Shredder to put them automatically on the battlefield. And why not turn some of our mill into card selection with Ripples of Undeath? We are a combo deck. Let's use this to grab what we need from the grave as we need it. Let's also put in another big wombo in the deck, Breach the Multiverse. Getting the best creatures from every player's graveyard is always fantastic. Mystic. And we can also use Muldrotha the Gravetide in order to give us more staying power and give the deck some alternate win conditions via swarming methods that don't rely on our X spells. Typically, one of the problems I find with the $15 deck challenge is that the decks tend to be very hyper-focused and do something very well, but it's hard to deviate from that path in any meaningful way, lest the deck becomes a muddled mess. As you upgrade the budget of the deck into the $20s and $30 area, though, you suddenly gain the flexibility of cards like Muldrotha. Then we can also add in Underground Mortuary and Hedge Maze, basically just any of the Surveil lands, as they will also fill our grave so that we can finally do that big wombo combo at the end of the game. And with that said, that is everything in the Teval deck, and I hope you guys enjoyed. I know it's not the full power version like was requested, but I like to build the budget versions of decks first so that I can see if I can build them within limitations. And if I can, then a full power version might come later once I understand where that deck with its limitations runs into problems. And remember, when I'm building a full power deck, all I'm doing is taking a deck from the bottom of bracket 3 to the higher echelons of bracket 3. I don't tend to build bracket 2 because I don't like building unfocused, and I don't tend to build bracket 4 because I don't like running all of the most optimized cards for a list. I find that to be kind of homogenous and boring, personally. So that's just where I'm at. You're always going to find these to be either low or high bracket 3. That said, let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell notification icon if you haven't already. And as always, everybody, thank you for being here, and insert end video tagline here. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full-time without the support from each and every one of you. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Blitzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie Chan, Kiri Artemis, Limor Pinku, Love Bunny Games, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Aurora, Leela Ururaka, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press, though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it just a little bit.